Good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you.
Yeah, calling in from Germany.
I am from Minnesota.
Okay, so what time is it for you? It's 8:59 something?
9, yep,
9:59.
9 a.m. 9
Okay.
a.m., 8:59,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. Okay, got it. So you got a
Hi,
full
Frank. This is Rich.
Hi, Rich. Good to see you again.
Good to see
Um,
you again.
or at least hear you. We cannot
Yeah,
see you.
yeah. I'll flip over to a camera here, but um, yeah, it's good hearing and seeing you.
Mhm. Yeah, I was forced to participate by Martin.
Yeah, we all know how that goes.
Yeah. He keeps on squeezing and pushing, right?
Oh yeah.
So, where's the master of
Hallo, der
ceremony?
Frank ist schon da. Servus.
Ja, servus Martin, ich grüße dich. We're not alone, Martin, so I guess we should switch to English.
Okay, let's switch to English. Most attendees don't use the video. You know, this is a audio event.
Okay.
But I like your cat
Oh, where is she?
behind you.
Yeah. Okay. She always misses out on the interesting stuff.
Okay, cool. Okay, so I would say we just start. Good evening, everyone. Good morning, everyone. So we have a few attendees from the US, a few from Germany, one from Australia. David Perkins is here again after a very long time. Then, of course, Frank from Frankfurt. That's why Frankfurt is Frank, yeah.
Yeah.
And then Martin and the team from Singapore. Rich is from Chicago. Colin, I never know from where you are, but Joe is from somewhere out in the sticks. That's what I know. Anyway, Frank, what really interesting is what I saw a LinkedIn post of you last week,
Yes.
and what you did is you did a survey of a few dozens of companies and asked them, hey, what is on your roadmap? What is going on? And then they deliberately told you what is on their roadmap. I mean, companies, right? Mature companies. And then you asked further and investigated, and then you found out, I mean, when they thought that they do something which is their core business, which is almost riskless because it's about penetrating the existing market with an existing product, you found out that they were into very risky ventures. And can I please ask you a few questions about that? Or maybe you tell us more so that we know
Yeah,
where
I
you're
would
coming
like
from.
Yeah, I would like to set the stage. I could be in only 30 minutes, so maybe we start with that point, right? And then I jump off and you continue the conversation. So here's an interesting thing that happened some 2 to 3 months ago. I was invited by one of the finest business schools in Europe, Fleric Business School. They're located in Ghent, Belgium, right? And they have a program that they call Strategy in Action, right? So they have corporate members, and the members, meaning the people, are CXO levels, CSOs, Chief Strategy Officer, or the occasional Chief Financial Officer, right? And the headline of the day was growth in general, and they invited me to be the Mr. Out of the Box innovation, right? When Frank speaks about out of the box, he means the box being the existing business model, also associated the existing operating model. But what is also important is the mental model, how you look at the world. And the typical company looks at the world from a product-based perspective, right? We're manufacturers of widgets, right? And when some things happen in the environment, be it technological disruption or other changes in here, they think about what does that mean for our products and our business then. So we then started off the day of 15 CXOs were in that group. They were coming from companies that start off with, say, 800, 700 millions of revenues and went up to close to 10 billion. So rather small, rather large SMEs or really large companies. And since the overall headline was growth, we said, well, let's kick this off. And why don't each of you name the most important growth initiative of your company? Right, so they started to fill out the post-its, and we put the post-its on a prepared ANSOF matrix, right? So on the x-axis, we had customers or business models, if you will, which are known, which are adjacent, and which are new. And on the y-axis, we had technology or capabilities, same classification, existing, adjacent, new, right? And as you can imagine from that ANSOF matrix on the lower left, you find known technology, known capabilities, known customers. That's the day-to-day business, right? And as you move up to the top right, you get into more unknown territory. But here's the interesting thing that happened. So we collected 50 post-its and asked them to plot them in the ANSOF matrix. And 49 out of 50 were, say, close to the lower left, meaning inside the box, business model, operating model, mental model. Only one was really far out in the innovation space. And that obviously falls together with my observation that innovation in many companies has lost its shine. And just this week, a McKinsey study came out saying that 60% of companies will freeze or even reduce their innovation budget. And obviously, that also relates to the folks in there. You may have seen that just this week, one of the oldest and most prestigious business building units of large companies from General Mills was being closed down. So that fits in the overall scheme. But what caught our attention was when we started folks to explain how these growth initiatives play out, we noticed something very, very interesting. So they started to explain, yes, we want to target a new customer group, and the other ones say, well, we want to introduce a service-based business model, X as a service, with a subscription-based revenue model. A third company said, well, we want to move our customers to electronic channels in the marketing and sales domain and use the power of AI to be able to manage even more customers. And other companies said, well, we have so many assets and capabilities sitting around, we want to put them to another use by creating, for instance, white label solutions, right? That could become a part of B2B offerings. But here's the interesting thing after hearing those stories, with what these companies are targeting, new customers, new value propositions, new capabilities, or putting existing capabilities to another use, there's a huge level of uncertainty suddenly in there. So the thesis that these 15 people had, well, we do have a growth that is playing out inside the box. We found that 1/3 of these initiatives were not really inside the box. They were not truly innovative. So if you look at the business model canvas and imagine a growth initiative that targets new customers, new value propositions, and maybe a new revenue model, what you do basically is you change 3 sectors of the 9 sectors that make up such a business model canvas. So it's not a complete business model innovation, but there's a significant level of change to say, let's call it the business logic in here. And also, obviously, if you need to have other capabilities, be it in the AI space, or if you, as a medtech company, want to create a service-based business model, diagnostics as a service, these kind of things, you need new capabilities. And this cannot be handled with a straightforward plan and execute approach that is pretty common to inside the box, to core. So our discussion took an interesting turn when we said, well, there seems to be something in between the well-known inside of the box, where companies, if they want to grow, expand geographically, or look for partners that help them getting access to new customer segments, and that what we call the growth at the edge of core. Again, for a quick litmus test, how many changes do you have to the business model canvas if you imagine that you implement this successfully? Do you expect that customers change their behaviors? Would you need new capabilities? And or fourth litmus test, do you think that corporate assets and capabilities should be put to new use cases? And 1/3 of what I collected from this sample was actually at the edge, and the consequence is that in order to drive these growth initiatives to a success, you need to have some elements of the innovator's mindset, some innovation tools like defining mapping and assumptions, defining experimentations, running the right experiments, and then draw your conclusion. And so I also think, and that would be concluding my intro, that for corporate innovators, this is also a new area. If they survive those budget cuts, where they can find spots to demonstrate their value and demonstrate the value quickly, because typically these growth initiatives play out on, say, 12 to 18 months. Martin, that would be my intro session.
Okay, yeah, I just didn't want to interrupt you. Maybe that was some artistic pause or something. Yeah, well, that sounds very interesting. But I have a question. You told me that you were at this prestigious business school, right?
Yes.
And then I would assume that if you have a C-level person that attends a business school, that there is something extraordinary, a bit outstanding, not the average businessman or business employee or whatever. So why do they show up to such a meeting, and they bring something along of which they only think that this is a riskless market penetration issue, and only when you discuss that there would they find out, hey, what you plan is much more than just working with what we have and just do more of it.
So first of all, I mean, Martin, the background is what Fleric Business School calls strategy in action. So imagine the setting to be a kind of peer group of CXOs, right? And they work through that program in predefined focal points that are of general interest, right?
Okay.
So last time it was about growth. Next time might be, for instance, the future of workforce in the age of AI and exactly, right? So that's part of an entire program.
Okay, I see. That's more like a group that goes through all aspects of business from all angles, and they hope that they would encourage each other, or even heat up, so that something is a bit like how to. I'm using this example a lot, and currently for explaining AI, so is how to explain a wild forest, Urwald, a jungle. That is a very complicated ecosystem, and doing business is I believe is even more complicated. And what you can is you can never find a definition, a big formula that covers everything. So what you need is walk around that forest and go inside and look at it from different perspectives and do some case studies, and then you would, if you do that for a long time and often, then you would know much more than before. And So that's something like systematically taking that on a journey through how to improve businesses or how to look at businesses.
Yeah, yes, the way that I see it is growth is always at the upper end of the agenda, right? Might be the top priority, or certainly within the top three, right? And so, I mean, the question is, how do you organize for growth, right? What type of growth do you envision? And the interesting observation, and that was the real aha moment, Martin, is they were not aware that 1/3 of these initiatives should be treated differently than the other 2/3.
And in what way different? You mean, is it?
Yes.
You said I start with a business canvas as a metrics, which I find very interesting. And then you have a heuristic rule which says, okay, if I change 3, which is 33% of my business canvas, then I should get extra capabilities, something like the green kryptonite or the X-ray goggles, or you mentioned the serial innovator. I believe you didn't use that word, but I believe that's what you meant, and a few other things, right? So very interesting.
See the point, Martin. The ultimate point is the level of certainty that you bring into your plans. I sometimes really stress this by saying the plan. The plan often becomes a cage for these people who need to execute it.
Yes.
And if you're inside the box, meaning existing business model, existing operating model, and a product-based view, which is totally fine, and you know all the stuff. So, and then you ask, how can we, for instance, increase the share of wallets with our customers, right? Doing more cross-selling, upselling, that kind of growth strategy, right?
Yes.
Yes, you know all that stuff, right? This is a situation where you can really say, okay, what are the factors that we need to consider? What's the best approach to reach them? What can we throw in as an incentive? And what are the other stuff that we need to consider, etc. And then you execute the plan, right? And then you meticulously track month by month how many percentage points are you on your progress scheme.
Okay.
But if you have a level of uncertainty, and let me get back to that in a second, this the plan is based on wild guesses, on assumptions, but not on knowns. So
Yes.
one of the things, so if you imagine that business model canvas, right? So the existing business model, obviously you have a running business, and 100% of these sectors, of these 9 sectors, are known, right? You know your customers, you know the channels, the value prop, the cost bases, the revenue models, etc. You name it, right? But now you start to play around. Oh, we want to approach another customer group, right? So far, we've been working with large accounts. Now we want to win the mid-sized businesses for our complex software solution, right? Mid-sized businesses, different customers, different needs. You need to have a different value proposition, maybe even different channels to reach them. And at the end of the day, you change the revenue model. So you have 4 changes, at least 4 changes to that business model canvas, right? And my experience, Martin, that's not scientifically proven, but if you have 2 or more changes, could be 3, come on, that depends on the specific case. Less than 2 or 3 are okay. You can manage that with a plan and execute mindset, right? So a manageable level of uncertainty.
Okay.
But if you go beyond these 2 to 3, right, there's so much uncertainty in here, so many assumptions, if you will, that it would be foolish to say, let's come up with a great plan, put them on a Gantt chart, and then run like crazy.
Now I understand.
Work.
It is more about can we solve it with our known linear thinking with the textbooks?
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
or do we need here something non-incremental that really is a challenge? And then from a technical point of view, you would have those innovators who know what instinctively because they recognize the patterns much earlier, and
Exactly.
but others who don't recognize patterns early, that you need to show them that they are now in uncharted territories.
Exactly.
Essentially.
Exactly.
And they
And
think, we can plan this. Yeah, let's plan this. Okay, and then
so I guess the takeaway would be for you to say, okay, let's check what the ambition is for the growth initiatives. And there are 4 quick litmus tests. I mean, they're so practical, you can really use them also in your discussions. Number 1, as already mentioned, how many changes are there to the business model canvas? Right.
Okay.
So if it's an adjacent customer group where you basically have the same value proposition, maybe some product modification, established channels, etc. Okay, good and fine. Run with that, right? But as discussed, if you switch the customers from large accounts to small and medium business sizes, new value prop, new channels, new revenue models, watch out, you have a ton of assumptions in your plan, right? And we need to have put on our innovators cap, meaning what are these assumptions?
Yes.
How can we test those assumptions, right? And come up with an agile way to work on what has proven to be a solid assumption. So that's the first litmus test, the business model canvas. The second litmus test is, do we expect that these customers that we have in mind need to change their behaviors?
And that
Customer behavior change
can be expensive, right?
Exactly. That's one of the toughest thing to do as an innovator, changing customers' behavior, right? Why? Because they are also working in their system. They might not be super happy with what they have, but they do have the workarounds. And now you come with that brilliant solution that requires them to change their behavior. Tough job. Tough job. Third litmus test is, would you need new capabilities as the company wants to grow? Like, for instance, I mean, it's pretty easy to understand that AI stuff, right? Or if you're coming back to the original example with the business model canvas, if you do have a new customer group and they expect, for instance, integration of their solutions into larger systems, you need to have system integration capabilities, which you might not have at that point. Huge uncertainty. So put on your innovators cap. And fourth point is, it's easily said, and Martin, I wrote a whole book about that. How can companies leverage their assets and capabilities, right? But if you want to put them to another use, that's also uncertainty. If that works from a feasible point, if the intent, the goal is really desirable from the customer's point, can you make a profitable business of it, the viability. So I guess what I wanted to share with you is to say, well, here's a kind of where you can practically be an advisor to your company, saying, do not take these situations too lightly, because there needs to be a dose of innovation in here. It's more than just execution.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense as a warning sign, right? So yeah. And then the work starts, because you need to gather also you need to know what you know, and maybe what you did, you just show them what they do not know. Right?
Exactly.
And then that's often more important. And then
Martin, could I interrupt with a question?
Yeah, of course, Rich, take over. Feel free. I brought Frank in for us all, not only for myself.
Sure.
Martin forced me to be here, Rich. No, you make use of
it. So I mute myself. It's all yours.
So Frank, I'm very curious about your third litmus test and regarding the new capabilities required potentially. Did in your work with the CXOs, did the conversation ever lead to anything about their acquisition strategy?
No, not directly. Obviously, that could relate to that, not at that point. My impression is that this is often taken too lightly. So we have an IT department, and they can obviously do that AI stuff. Big assumption, right? Or if you say, for instance, if you want to have system integration capabilities, meaning you need also to be proficient in working with partners, finding right partners, managing those partners, etc. This is by often taken too lightly. Buying these capabilities obviously is one option, but we didn't explicitly elaborate on that.
Yeah. Okay. Very interesting. I mean, that would have been a great experience to be part of, and appreciate you sharing that with us. If we could go back to the very beginning of your intro, when you talked about the 49 to 50 project that they had out, did I understand you correctly that you said that 49 of the 50 resided in basically the existing and existing?
Yes, yes, that's how they saw it, right? And I think the aha moment for these guys, these 15 people in that workshop, was life is not that simple, right? 2/3 were actually inside the box, right? So they kind of know how to handle that, right? But 1/3 needs some extra thinking, let's put it that way.
Yeah, sure. So in that existing and existing mindset, I mean, were they thinking that they could just bring incremental innovations to their current product portfolio to service those customers?
It's obvious. Incremental was part of the journey, Rich. But the point that at least we discussed much more, and I also had this point in some more discovery calls in the last 2 months, is being aware of how you make decisions in that space. So the model that I created that rings a bell for many people is to say, well, if we're on the lower left of that Ansoff matrix, right, customers on the x-axis, technologies, capabilities on the y-axis, known, adjacent, new. Lower left is core. I call it straightforward, plan, and execute.
Yes. Yeah.
As we move on to the more adjacent space, but still obviously with some connection to core, right? So we leave everything as is, some product adaptations, but new customer group. We come into what I call the complicated space, where you might get through in executing with some executive decisions, right? There needs to be a trade-off made, right? And then you revert back and these guys make the decision. As we move on now, going into the real adjacencies where we have 2, 3, 4 changes to the business model canvas, etc., this is what I call the complex space. There we find a certain set of key assumptions, 3, 4, 5, if you will, underlying, not explicitly made in many instances, that require validation, right? Otherwise, the whole plan is just a fantasy. The team tries to force fit reality into an Excel sheet. That will not work. And that will lead to a big frustration down the road because the growth initiative will not materialize. And
All right, you triggered me. You triggered me that it's in an Excel spreadsheet.
Okay.
What other, out of curiosity, if it's not in an Excel spreadsheet, is there any other places that it's stored?
I mean, that's how these growth initiatives tick, Joe, right? So, I mean, here's
That they are in spreadsheets?
It's part of the game. Make a business case because that's how core ticks. In core, right, where you work in a world full of knowns, everything is calculable. And the business case, when you think about product adaptations or opening a new sales channel or widening an existing sales, everything needs a business case. That's how the established business folks tick. Just to give you one idea, when I talk about innovation, which would be the next onion ring, right, out there beyond the adjacent, I typically do not use the word business case. I speak of an economic viability analysis. Why? Because the term business case rings a bell for these people, right? They want to have their Excel spreadsheets, 4 tabs, and tons of figures on there.
I jumped in because I am trying to decommission that Excel spreadsheet as your ledger for risk because it and you've used all the words, ping buzzwords right around it,
Yeah,
outside of the box, in the box,
yeah,
and what I've called it is define the box
yeah,
because you have to define your risk and the things that take you outside of the box in order to create a box.
yeah. I'm with you. I'm with it.
Yeah. So, Frank, the interesting why I got triggered is because you are using the Ansoff matrix as a core measurement tool for a charting tool. Where are we, right? And
Yeah,
a few years back or so, I matched the Ansoff matrix with the different types of innovation that I'm aware of as a patent attorney, right? So,
yeah, yeah.
and we have patents for that have very little improvement, and I call them for the linear thinkers, and then the incremental innovators that just combine what is known from their textbooks and still get a patent. But then there are those who really who do non-incremental innovation and outstanding innovation that you also can see in the patents, and that really that triggered me because I thought Ansoff, and the one who brought the Ansoff matrix up at all is here, is Rich McDonald. He highlighted that tool to me, and I thought, wow, that's ingenious. That's so simple but so helpful, and uh, and and I believe easy to understand even for
Exactly.
laymen.
That's the main merit, right? I mean, these poor CXOs, they need to have something that is easy to understand.
Yes, because you don't give them a Clayton Christensen book, right?
No, no.
So, Frank, so if we think about your Ansoff matrix as you described it, the playing field that you're in, I think in your book you referred to it as reshaping the core, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So reshaping the core,
Yes.
was that 49 of the 50 projects?
See, I think there's a mental gap in here, right? When we speak about that playing field too, or in that growth context, in order to make it clear for those folks, right? How should you make decisions? And what's the nature of the plan that you're constructing? Is that a waterfall type execution, or is it more an agile? These things fall together, right? What I learned, Rich, is or these days, growth still stands as a topic. Innovation in some companies started to smell.
So, but it sounded like to me that that the projects that you were describing, these 49 of the 50, that, basically were just, basically serving the core, and it's known everything. And
They thought.
And it's not really going after the markets.
Exactly. So they thought we know everything. Now we need just to make up a plan, assemble the resources, and execute. Right? They thought.
Got it.
And for navigating inside the Ansoff matrix, you use the business canvas.
No. We looked at the initiative. So there's a company, a bakery, Belgian bakery, 1.3 billion of revenues. And they said, well, our goal is also to basically connect electronically with our major B2B customers, right? So they're more on the B2B side, serving the McDonald's, etc. of this world, right? So that we can basically change the customer behavior from ordering weekly quantitudes to a more, say, hourly scheme in order to adopt our production, right?
Okay.
So that would be, since we're assuming that there's a change in customer behavior, litmus test number 2, we would say, hold your horses, not so fast. Let's look at the underlying assumptions. Right? So do we really make that happen with our customers, right? The benefits on the internal side is clear, right? But what about the customer behavior, right? Or we might be saying, looking at the business model canvas, but that would be kind of okay in that situation, right? Same customers, existing channels, value proposition, all the other stuff remains unchanged. So this is not basically a step-by-step scientifically proven approach, but a kind of checkpoints, litmus test, right?
It's we in control theory we call it heuristic.
Yeah, okay, with you. I'm with you, Martin. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because you don't have a precise rule, but you give a rule of thumb that gives you a good idea. It works well if for most of the time, but it comes with some how to say randomness.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, but,
So, I mean,
still, you're using that one for, and you have assigned. I mean, the Ansoff matrix has two coordinates. The one is the degree of product change that you make, and the other one is the degree of market change that you make. And and you have mapped those 2 dimensions to the 9 dimensions of the business canvas.
No. We look at the individual initiative, right? So out of these 15 people came up with 50 post-its.
Yes.
So then, as we were discussing post-it number 22,
yes,
we asked them, now look at the business model canvas. If you were successful with that initiative 22, how many sectors would it change? Oh, I've got 2 changes. Would it require a change in customer behavior? Yes, it would. Would you need new capabilities? Could be, but I've got my IT department. Okay. Is there a new use case for corporate assets and capabilities? No. Okay, so we've got 3 litmus tests more on the positive side. So the piece of advice would be, think about it. What are the key assumptions that you're making, and how could you test this? And since you're working in partially uncharted territory, what would be an agile way forward? Right? It's not the waterfall. The waterfall bears the risk of failure.
So there are 2 different steps, Martin, and 2 different tools.
Exactly.
Yeah, sure. But based on, and then you don't say based on the business canvas, but based in changes in the business canvas.
Yeah, exactly. That's one litmus test. Yeah.
Yes.
For initiative 22, right?
Yes. That's so interesting because I mean, because it gives you that's a standardized model that is also easy to understand for most people.
Exactly.
You tell them business canvas and they would know what it is, because once they were asked in an exam somewhere, and at that time they never understood why we need a business canvas. But now for the first time, so wouldn't it mean that if you want to improve the capabilities of a company, that you should run an exercise with them and say, take 10 of your products, possibly as different as possible, and now analyze those products with a business canvas. And then let's look at what you have done in your analysis. And then, and only then would they understand in their own company what is going on, or would understand better in the terms of the business canvas. And then ask them also the 3 questions. What behavior what behavior must the customer have in order to accept this product, or what is it that they want? Because only then would they be able to determine whether they need to change the customer need to change a behavior.
I wouldn't start with the product, Martin, right? Because the products that you have, they were designed for a specific purpose, right? They do the job of the customer that the customer hires them to do, right? Jobs to be done theory. I would start with these growth initiatives, or if we want to be one level above, change initiatives, right? We're changing something in the business.
Yeah, but most people, look, I give you an example. No, let me finish this, please, Joe.
Absolutely.
Currently what we have, Frank, and it's very obvious, you're in Germany, you know it. The German car industry produced in 2017 5 million cars. The production of cars in Germany declined from 2017 to today, which is 8 years later, by 800,000 cars per year. So we are now at 4.2. It is very very obvious because 75% of the German cars or 80% go into the export, that this sector will shrink by 50% over the coming very few years. And those companies, and you know that already because we have a crisis in that area, and not only there but also in the chemical industry, they would want, what can we do? What initiative can we do in order to survive? Because we are now losing our biggest customer, which was Opel, for example, or Volkswagen, or they only buy less because they order now from Hungary because it's somehow they build the cars also there. They don't order from Germany anymore. And then and if you talk with them and you want to create some interest, then you cannot just start with the initiative because there is no initiative yet, because the whole thing is like a clockwork that works, and they don't need to change if they just do this is what they did the past 30 years. And in order to create an awareness of what can be done, then I would start with the products and look and let them analyze what is the customers that you have, and what is the and then ask those 4 questions. What capabilities are we using for those, right? And only from then, once they have the inventory with a business model and you are fit for litmus test basic questions, then I would let them go for a new venture or innovation, or maybe, I don't know, even could be that they look for customers elsewhere, where outside of Germany, for example, isn't it?
This is an innovation space, Martin, right? You think about new capabilities that you need to acquire, Rich,
Yes.
maybe with M&A, right? You think about new products, new production lines, meaning new operating models. So we're far out in the innovation space.
Yes.
This is not inside or at the edge of the box. This is clearly outside of the
But
box.
I believe that these companies are aware that they need to innovate. It's not about, because these are all Mittelstand, small and medium-sized mature companies, and they know exactly what innovation is, because this is how they were set up 40 years ago.
I think one of the things that Frank was trying to express, correct me if I'm wrong, Frank, but Martin, I think the issue is that if you start with a product focus at the beginning of that analysis,
yes,
you end up with being very regimented and very focused on having a very narrow outcome.
Okay.
You need to start with, basically, the approach of the growth initiative, because that tells you all the other criteria that you need to factor into
Exactly.
your assumptions and the outcome potentially.
But if they don't have a growth initiative, then what?
No,
They go out of business like Kodak.
Exactly.
And that the investors decide that the next product that actually meets the risk of the customers. So I don't think that you start with the product. I think you start out with the risk of what the customers are foregoing without having a product. And then a product gets made to solve their demand.
Exactly.
And if you start with a product, you have parallel products by competition. And your competitors might sell a product better than you can because you didn't address the customer's needs.
Maybe I'm really not explaining myself well. All what I wanted to say is, before, assume you have a crash with an aircraft and you survive. Then the first thing what I would do is, after that, I would do an inventory of the stuff that I have for finding out what can I do with my situation, right? And that inventory would, for such a company that loses the biggest client that made 80% of the revenue for the past 30 years, I would say, what is it that we already know, and then start the initiative from there. And often they may even not know what their customers' behavior is, because
But then they are in an innovation space, right? So I mean, this is really creating value outside of the existing business. Outside
no,
of
no, no. Of these people, please believe me, because I work in that space for more 50 years.
Mhm.
They run their small and medium-sized business, and they do stuff, but they don't know their customers. They just know that they buy this product, and what they do with it, I have no clue. I don't know. And 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 that's the level where we start. If they know that they need to innovate, I believe then the first step is already done, because the question is then, how do we go through these uncharted territories? Do we more focus on new gadgets, or do we look at problems that are out there, or are we building cool stuff or well-designed stuff, or do we get some do we use some methods like design thinking to find a new niche or something? Then they are already, I believe then they are already out of the forest, because they know already what they could do. But most of them, they're circling around themselves, and they're in panic because now business is not running anymore.
Say, Martin, Michael here. Good
Go
morning,
ahead.
everyone. Yeah, I saw something a few days ago, and I'd like to reflect for the group. So there were a couple of videos, 10 things that we grew up with that are gone. Okay, so leaded gasoline was mentioned. Um, the idea of asbestos in buildings and exhaust systems. Okay, so some of these that are gone were because of regulations and public safety, but some of them that are Blockbuster. So Netflix came along. Blockbuster and VCR tapes are gone. So we've been talking now, guys, for 4 years. So the S curve I'd like to bring to bear, and some of these could be geopolitical. So practices of how to label pharmaceutical products are different in Japan than in Europe or here. So to be aware of the next S curve and among your competitors and surprising and delighting your customers, to be early with those S curves. And again, some are taking advantage of innovation and technology. When we took lead out of gasoline, we had to worry about exhaust valves, right? So the companies that were first with unleaded gasoline were pioneering innovation, step curve. Leaded gasoline was very important for 60 or 70 years, but finally it was killing people. So for the group, I'd like to just mention, reflect on the things that are gone. And Joe, you mentioned Kodak. That's a classic example that kids at Harvard study every day. And I think Blockbuster is similar. Napster for music online, and then iTunes, and now anybody on Google and YouTube can get any music you like for free. So these big changes, you're either going to get on board, get out of the way, or get off. It's some of them, they're changed forever. So those are the innovative things that are forced upon us in the environment. You either take advantage of those that are basic mega trends, or you don't. And if you don't and someone else does, you're out of business, like Kodak.
Interesting. Yeah, but one of the main points that we heard is that these people do not know what they don't know, and by showing them what they don't know, you open their mind, hopefully that they would be interested in new methods to do what needs to be done in a more systematic way. No, in a less systematic way, I would say, because you say the spreadsheet is not a useful tool for getting into the non-incremental innovation.
No, but it is the most commonly used tool for it. It is not the right tool, but I wholeheartedly agree. It is the most commonly used to log your your needs list, your functional test list, your standard operating procedures, your bill of materials, your preventative maintenance plans, your spare parts, your good manufacturing practices, your calibrated instrument list, your customer quotes, and your Gantt chart all change because of risk. And risk isn't an Excel spreadsheet.
I mean, there's even another aspect to these growth initiatives. There's a psychological effect associated. I call it the plan, right? So here's a CXO, right? And he or she wants to drive that business, add 10% more revenues or whatever, right? And he or she asks the troops, the sales guys, the biz dev ladies, the product folks, etc., to come up with a good plan, right? And in order to secure management attention, they are encouraged to overpromise, right? Make it big, they are told, right? And so when they embark on that journey where the assumptions behind the Excel sheet, Joe, are really, really shaky, there's also the psychological moment in here that they basically, the plan had a psychological game going on as well. And so the plan soon becomes the cage for the team.
So I'd love to bring this example up as the plan. So the customer likes consistent Wi-Fi, right?
Yeah.
They like
Yeah.
consistent Wi-Fi on an airplane. So what happens? They go and meet the plan of the customer. They decide to update the Wi-Fi on the plane. While they do that, they take the door off the plane to update the hardware of the Wi-Fi. So now you've inherently induced a risk that you didn't put the door back on properly and the door comes off in the middle of the flight.
Yeah.
And so the product was a flight, not Wi-Fi. And we ended up doing things to make the flight more pleasurable, these bonus perks. And we nearly kill a whole bunch of people because we didn't identify the risk that the door needed to have a standard operating procedure with new Loctite screws to put back on it. So the Loctite screws and the Wi-Fi are not at all part of the scope of work of flying, but they are. And it's in an Excel spreadsheet.
Yep, I'm with you. They love it, they hate it, right? But this is how the existing business ticks, right? They squeeze everything in an Excel sheet. Unfortunately, you cannot put the reality of new customers where you do not know how they would adopt the pace, the speed, the extent and adoption into an Excel sheet. It's just guesswork.
It can be more prescriptive than guesswork. The other term that keeps coming to my mind, because I'm doing a pitch on exactly this solution, is that the siloed decisions are setting your reputation on fire, and that risk is actually the single source of truth. And in none of the business workflow databases is risk really the pivoting point of how you run your business.
Good point. Super. Yeah, super. So that should be part of the alignment of the team. That's a consequence, Joe, right? So it's not just the plan, but also the risk, right?
Frank, we have 9 minutes. Can we
Yeah.
introduce your book, The New versus Now? And can you maybe also make a parallel between new and now? And I would say you have met the now people wanting to do something new without realizing that they're doing something new.
Yeah, sure. I mean, Martin, it's now and new. I start with the ones who basically generate the revenues that keep the shareholders happy and also fund everything that goes beyond. But that's just. So if you want just to have a look, it's Lean Scale Up in one word, leanscaleup.com/book. There you get, first of all, some information about the book and also some goodies. Goodies being one free chapter to download, a case study that relates to that, and also used Notebook LM from Google to have an AI-generated podcast. So if you want to experience that, how the two AI personas discuss Frank's book, and feel free to listen in some 7 or 8 minutes or so. So, I mean, if that's of interest, now and new is about, I think, one of the biggest problems of corporate innovation. I mean, you can have tons of ideas, right? But if you do not manage to get the new stuff, let's put it that way, aligned with the now stuff, then there will be no scaling up. And if there is no scaling up, everything that came before is just a costly hobby, as I like to say. So it then turns out, if you dive deeper, which I did with more than 100 people, so the book has Frank Matters on the title, but it's the joint effort of more than 100 people in here, is to say, well, the deeper reason why this does not work in most of the companies is that companies have not yet learned to make two systems work together that are inherently incompatible. So you have the now system, the day-to-day business. 99% of people work in here, right? Doing the selling, the marketing, the recruiting, financial controlling, procurement, etc. You name it. Which is short-term driven, which runs on processes for good reason. Why? Because it wants to repeat yesterday's success formula. Right, and the other system is the new system, right? Creating something out of the box, finding value pools that the company is able to capture because it has a set of capabilities and maybe one or two more capabilities that could be acquired via partnering or buying other companies, and off they go. So these two systems do not fit together, but how can we make it fit together? And that's the central point of this book. It's a system problem. And we've worked out, the 100 folks and myself, a system solution, which consists of three major headlines. So what you need is leadership. And obviously this is broken down to make it very, very actionable, not just some generic statements. You need to have some clear thinking on the process from the start to the end, from the meaningful idea to the scaled up business, and all the other things that you need to solve along the way, like how do I structure and how do I manage the portfolio, etc., etc. And since no idea becomes a new business by itself, it's also about the people and the culture. In particular, for instance, how can we create a startup-like autonomy for those corporate entrepreneurs in that corporate context that is shaped by bureaucracy and processes? Or how can we establish a collaboration model that offers a chance to win-win? So that's what Now and New is about. leanscaleup.com/book. Use the goodies, please, the freebies.
Yeah, Lean Startup. Yeah, I have it here. I still want to write a book review.
Oh, yeah, I'm counting on it, Martin. You forced me to be here. That's the
Yes.
that's the least thing that you can do, right?
Yes. No, but how would you link the these people at this business school, the CXOs that you met, the 49 or 50 that you met? Are these in principle more now people, or are these in principle more new people, or did you match them somehow?
These are definitely now people, right? So they made the career in the now system, right? The day-to-day business, watched it grow, made their career there, but typically all the time inside the now system, you rarely find an innovation person, right, that becomes CEO. That's the super exception, right? And depending on the personality, level of curiosity, the level of openness, they might have some blue elements, right? The blue oceans, right?
Yes.
On their tie, if you will, right? But the tie is predominantly red shirt system, red oceans, right? Okay.
Yeah, but then wasn't that something mind-boggling for them when they saw?
It was. It was really an aha moment, right? So,
really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And wanted to share this with you also to help you maybe in that point, to make that point in your position in your advisory services.
Yes. Yeah, sure. I mean, we should run that test on a regular basis, because not only as a new way to go with a company, because they would need to find some white space, right, to create the blue ocean there, but also to to value the blue ocean people more, the innovators more, and not look down on them, which is what you often see. And also tell the innovation people that is not only about creating a new product and or finding problems that could be solved, is also how to bring that to the market, because ultimately it's a grand job to do the sales and go around, ring the bell, and try to sell that stuff, even if it's good and you know that it's good, right? And then so find more understanding for each other from both sides.
And if the headline innovation doesn't work anymore in the current climate, use the headline growth.
Aha. See, I learned something. Okay. Yes. And growth is, yeah, innovation is such a abgedroschenes Wort, is unbelievable. Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, Frank,
Yeah.
before we end today's session, I do want to touch base with you, offline here in reference to.
Looking forward to it, Rich.
Yeah, in reference to a project that I'm running.
Yeah. So good. We have reached the end of our hour, and then I will just close this session. Thank you, Frank, for taking 1 hour instead of the promised 30 minutes.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, it was
tremendously
too exciting.
Thank you so much. Yeah, you're always creating joy. That's really something is unbelievable. Okay, thank you, folks. See you next week again. I close the meeting. Thanks, Frank. See you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. Take care. I'll be in touch.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.